pinksboutique.co.uk. Remember, that's PN.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. This is the Healthy Ramadan Show. I'm your host, Abdul Malik. Welcome to the show.
Ramadan FM 2018.
The voice of British Muslims.
Assalamu alaikum. This is the Healthy Ramadan Show. My name's Abdul Malik. This is the show for you today. We've got somebody lined up to talk to you about Ramadan and mental health. I'm welcoming to the studio my guest, Minha Begum. She's the communications manager for Inspirited Minds, which is an organization that is run for Muslims. It's a charity, UK-based charity, and they're here to raise awareness and defeat stigma around Muslim mental health, as well as provide vital education and support to those who need it the most. Welcome to the studio, Minha.
Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
This is a really good topic, and I'm very passionate about working around mental health and discussing it and making sure that our listening audience get the opportunity to find out more about what exactly is mental health, how it affects us, and in particular to the Muslim community. It's something that we don't readily talk about, and we talk about it in a roundabout way, I believe. And it's important to have people like yourselves come along to the studio and talk about mental health in context to Islam, and how we can grapple with our kind of emotional state and how we are feeling. And Ramadan is an ideal time to look inwardly and look introspectively around how we are, how our mental health is affected. And it may well be affected in a positive way. I'm hoping that it affects us in a positive way during the month of Ramadan, but there might be some negative connotations around, the whole, feeling around Ramadan. It's a long day. It's quite, demanding on our physicality as well as our mental well-being. So let's talk about that. Just talk a bit more about Inspirited Minds to start off with, to give us a kind of background, please.
Okay, so Inspirited Minds was founded officially in 2014, and our co-founders conducted some research around Muslims and mental health, and they found that one of the biggest reasons why Muslims don't get help is because they feel that the service providers potentially don't understand their mental health in the capacity of their religion and their faith and their beliefs. And more often than not, you'd find Muslims almost justifying or sort of explaining excessively about their religion in the context of their mental health, and almost having to give da'wah, which they really shouldn't be in that sort of capacity. And a lot of Muslims didn't go get help because of the stigma and the stereotypes and just the ignorance and the taboos around mental health. The majority of the time, Muslims didn't even understand what mental health was. They thought that Islam doesn't even acknowledge mental health, and how can you have a mental health issue because you have Allah? Muslims should be happy and fairy all the time. So Inspirited Minds was set up on that, and we have a really rigorous set of values, and our faith is rooted in those values. So our ultimate aim, I guess, is to just eradicate taboos and stigmas around mental health and ensure that everybody who needs help is getting it, really. We want to empower communities, and we want to, make...
Absolutely.
Yeah, pretty much. So we do loads of workshops and events. Majority of them are free. We're making Muslim mental health resources, which I think is the first to be bought in the UK, and loads of different things like that.
We'll talk a bit more about your offering in terms of what you provide and how people can contact you towards the latter part of the show. Do you feel that through your work, you do get good interaction with our community? And with mosques, have you done work with mosques before?
Yeah, absolutely. So last summer we conducted our first ever imam training, and that was really successful, mashallah. We had 12 imams from across the nation come together, embarking, and we did a 3-day sort of mental health first aid course in conjunction with Mind, and we were able to offer, quite a comprehensive sort of a conference on Muslim mental health, and we offered various different types of theories, various principles, and we that was a huge sort of milestone for Inspirational Minds. And in general, I don't think the UK has ever had an imam training as such, and we saw that gap in the community. Imams were coming to us and saying, Islamically, we know how to deal with this, but there's a bigger issue here. We need to know how to deal with it from a mental health perspective, and yeah, so we have had really good relationships with plenty of mosques, and we often do our workshops and events. We go to local Islamic schools. We work a lot with ISOCs. So the engagement, Islamic societies at universities, student societies. So the engagement is definitely there, but it is hit and miss, unfortunately. Like sometimes we'll get a lot of interest, like on Facebook or on social media around certain events, and sometimes only a handful of people will turn up. And not to say that's not successful, because it is, because empowering one person is empowering a lot of people, but it is hit and miss. And unfortunately, when it comes to mental health, a lot of people want to hear about the jinn stories, and they want to hear about the ruqyah and things like that. I want to
pick on that in a short while. Let's just remind the viewers and the listeners how they can call in and speak to us. We've got Minha Begum from Inspirited Minds, which is a charity dealing with Muslim mental health issues. Do call in on 0333 011 6786, or post up your comments on Facebook Live. We're on Ramadan FM 2018. So whatever way we can get your feedback, we're really keen to get some people to call in and ask some questions around their views around mental health. If you've had any personal experiences, please do share them with us. If you don't want to call in, just drop us a comment on Facebook. We'll pick that up. So let's get into the discussion. First question I have for you is, how does the general purpose of Ramadan relate to mental health?
So I think if we look at the purpose of Ramadan, there's a lot of lessons and benefits that we can learn from Ramadan itself, but essentially it is a means to attain taqwa, which is God consciousness and piety. Now, usually taqwa translates as piety, and a lot of people just think that's being practicing and that's being religious, whereas God consciousness is actually a lot more than just doing your salah and doing your Quran and fasting. It's actually being physically and mentally aware of Allah's presence in your life and in your destiny, and that has a huge impact on your mental health. And I think Ramadan itself, it does massive wonders for your mental health. And I think what we have to remember is Ramadan isn't just about the fasting, it's about the ibadah and the different types of ibadah and the impact and the weight of those different types of ibadah in Ramadan, not just the fasting aspect of it. And again, these can have huge effects on your mental health, sometimes positively and sometimes negatively, which we also have to consider and prepare ourselves for. I mean, the general purpose of Ramadan relating to mental health is that it can actually, make you aware of yourself, which will also make you aware of your mental health problems. It can often strip back a lot of the emotions that you cover up, because you are left to your raw self. We're no longer feeding our physical bodies. It's time to nourish our souls and our mental capacities. So again, it can uncover a lot of things as well as bring benefit to a lot of things. I mean, fasting is supposed to give mental clarity, and a lot of the time people will think clearly. The Sahaba and the Prophet ﷺ, they used to fast quite often, and a lot of people would just say it was because they were super religious, and always because they were people of Iman and etc. Well, actually, if you look at the mental health benefits of fasting, you'd actually see that it helped them in a number of ways, and it wasn't just getting closer to Allah in its sort of traditional sense, if that makes sense.
We always talk about the health benefits of fasting. although some people tend to think, oh, fasting, you're starving yourself,
Yeah.
you're obviously going to do more harm than good. What do you see as the benefits of
Yeah.
fasting when it comes to your mental health? Just
I
touch on a couple of,
well,
because it may not be the same for everybody.
no, absolutely not. It's definitely not the same for everybody. And we have to also speak for the people that perhaps can't fast because they might be on medications for their
Yes.
mental health. You know, people with eating disorders might be a trigger for them. So, of course, you know, Islam advises that you shouldn't fast in these sort of situations. So we have to remember that, you know, for Ramadan, for a lot of people, it's not about the fast, actually, but it's the vibe, the atmosphere that Ramadan gives.
Yes.
And people just say, well, if you're not fasting, you can experience that vibe outside of Ramadan, but it's completely different. It's a blessed month for a reason. But personally for me, I mean, like, fasting does, you know, like I said, it gives me huge mental clarity. But I think personally for me, this Ramadan especially, I have actually realized how sort of where my mental health is at, because not eating, it might be something so simple, but it's actually a huge part of our lives. And not eating has given me that ability to step back and really analyze my life. And, you know, it sounds strange. And, you know, if you're a fasting person, I'm sure you'd be able to relate that it does actually make you think so much. Like, you know, there's so much space in your mind, essentially, where you've been given that chance to think about yourself, your actions, why it is you do what you do, why you think the way that you think, and it really emphasizes like specific things that you wouldn't necessarily pick up on if you weren't fasting. And again, it's not just about not giving yourself food and drink. It puts like it's just a special Ramadan vibe, I guess. Like, it's something that's within the month, and perhaps that is the ultimate blessing from Allah, that it's a lot more than just abstaining from food and drink and participating in extra, you know, ibadah. There's something a lot more to it that I think Ramadan uniquely offers.
Okay. You also wanted to mention the 5 ways of well-being and how the Sunnah spoke about these issues long before the West curated them.
Yeah.
You haven't touched on that part,
Yeah. So I mean, so the 5 ways of well-being. So this is something that has been, I guess, almost pioneered recently in the West. And, you know, the 5 things from the top of my head are, you know, getting exercise, volunteering, helping, you know, so volunteering, helping others, also, you know, positive affirmations. You know, there's loads of different ways of
You're firing across a lot of buzzwords here.
Sorry.
I understand some
sure.
of it, not all of it.
Yeah.
What do you mean by a positive affirmation?
So positive affirmations is basically telling yourself positive things, really, like telling yourself that you are enough and that you can do this, and telling yourself that, you know, you're not a failure, which a lot of people would tell themselves. Telling, you know, positive affirmations is just basically being kind to yourself, I guess, put in another way. And a lot of people...
Are we allowed to do that in Ramadan, are we? Because if you think about it, when
Yeah.
we pray, when we seek Allah's forgiveness and we ask for Him to wipe away our sins, it's almost like we're on the back foot in terms of feeling, you know, so humble and so kind of, it's not necessarily negative, but we're kind of feeling down and almost on the cusp of being on the verge of depression because you're feeling so bad about yourself. And you're saying that we ought to feel good about ourselves.
Absolutely.
And to put across a message and connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say the good things about what we've done, not necessarily dwell on the bad things.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you answered that, actually, on the blog at
I didn't
Inspirational
answer
Minds.
it. It just,
ask
I'm
it.
just coming from a perspective that we all feel bad about ourselves during Ramadan, don't we?
Yeah.
We reflect on the previous 11 months,
Yeah.
all the bad things that we've done, not necessarily the good things that we've done. We should also highlight the good things.
Yeah,
should
absolutely.
we not?
And I'm glad you said the word like reflection.
Yeah.
And I think reflection itself, its definition is not... Reflection doesn't mean to just look back on your past experiences and feel bad about them. Reflection is about thinking about the meaning behind them and how to move on from them. And I'm glad that you said, you know, are Muslims allowed to do positive affirmations? Because it is an important question. And I think a lot of people mix up positive affirmations with arrogance. And we've actually covered this on the blog in May at Inspirational Minds, where we talked about self-love and self-acceptance. We have to remember that in order to love and accept ourselves, is loving and accepting Allah, because there's no one closer to ourselves apart from us, and Allah is even closer than that. Remember, Allah is closer than our jugular vein.
Yes, indeed.
And, you know, we have to take examples from the Prophet ﷺ story. He often would use positive affirmations. He would often say, I have been sent to mankind as a mercy. I am a man of best manners, and things like that is positive affirmations. And there's a difference between saying, I'm the best at everything, and saying, actually, I'm enough. I know I can do better, but for now, I'm enough. There's a huge difference in saying that. And you know, Allah doesn't say like repent and be sad. He says repent and be hopeful. And that is what positive self-affirmations is believing in yourself, not disbelieving in yourself. You know, Allah did not say like you have to carry on repenting and feel bad about it. Again, it's tadabbur, it's reflection and pondering over your actions and the meaning behind them and how to improve from them, and accepting that you are enough, essentially.
We touched upon this already, but you maybe want to explore some of the issues around this a bit more. How is mental health affected during Ramadan?
So, I mean, like I said before, you are completely stripped back to your raw organic self, I guess. But if we look at it in the physical sense as well, food is really important to the human being. It's massively important. Some people use it as a comfort. Some people, you know, just eat to live. Some people use it as company. Some people can't go out with friends without eating. So it has a massive impact on our day-to-day lives. And not forgetting, we're fasting, you know, I think our longest fast this year was like 19 hours or something, and it's without water as well. That's a massive, I mean, we are massively dehydrated a lot of the time. And also, don't forget, food has a massive impact on our hormones and the chemicals that are released in our bodies and in our brains. So of course our moods are going to fluctuate. You know, you've heard of the term hangry, right? So people get hungry and angry, and you know, it's amazing, subhanAllah. It's almost as if like the Prophet ﷺ's teachings are in preparation for Ramadan. You know, if you get angry, you should change your positions and etc. You should seek refuge in Allah. So in the physical sense, yes, Ramadan has a massive impact on your health and mental health. But also if we talk about it from a mental perspective, again, it strips you back to your raw self. It makes you realize what you are doing and who the true self, who the true you is almost. And I heard something quite astounding the other day. I'm sure a lot of people have ever heard it, but you know how, like, you know, the shayateen are locked up during Ramadan. So when people are still, you know, doing their bad habits and they're still having negative thoughts and stuff, you kind of realize, hang on a second, this isn't shaitan, it's actually me. Like, for example, I experience quite a lot of negative thoughts. I get, you know, sort of overwhelming guilt, constantly feel like I'm not doing enough. And a lot of people, you know, a lot of shuyukh and etc. will say, oh, this is just waswasa, you should be hopeful in Allah and etc. And, you know, during Ramadan, it's like, well, the shaitan's not there. This is actually me. This is my problem. I need to fix this. I need to acknowledge what's going on, and I need to accept what Allah has given me and how I can use his means to get through this. It's not just about, okay, it's just shaitan, I just need to say Bismillah and it will go, because the reality is it doesn't. It might help, but it doesn't. And I think a lot of that comes, you know, from the hadith about tying your camel and making dua to Allah. Like, we have to do what is in our means, but also be hopeful and ask Allah.
You also wanted to touch upon Tib and Nawabi.
Yeah.
How Ramadan is the best time to implement these things.
Yeah.
Would you like to tell us more about that?
So Tib and Nabawi is something that we're covering on the blog for June as well at Inspiration Minds. And the reason why we chose Tib and Nabawi is because in Ramadan, everyone tries to be healthy, right? And everybody's like, yeah, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to no pakora, you know, no all sorts of stuff, no fried foods, etc. And I think we decided to talk about Tib and Nabawi is because we know that Islam is a way of life. It's a lifestyle. It's not just specific things that you do in a specific month. And, you know, Tib and Nabawi, so the Sunnah foods and like Sunnah medicine, so it's prophetic medicine basically. Tib and Nabawi translates to prophetic medicine.
I believe we've had a show around this already. We've had somebody come in to talk about, you know, her prophetic medicines as well. A few weeks back we had Karima who talked about Islamic nutrition. She's a very, very in my opinion, she's very expert and
Yeah.
very knowledgeable around
Yeah.
Islamic nutrition.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of
mashallah.
people took away a lot from
Yeah.
that session. Particularly, she was also talking about a book that she'd
Yeah.
recently published, and people have got sight of that. So
Yeah.
food. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Food is almost like the center of everything, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is, and
The focal point.
Yeah.
Not in the sense that it's we're looking forward to feast. It's feast or famine.
Yeah.
It's a case of the food allows us to understand why it's ever so important that we are blessed with certain things, and some of us are not blessed with certain things. Some of us are deprived of certain things.
Absolutely.
It's the deprivation of food that it should be paramount in our minds. Although a lot of us will break fast, we'll overindulge, and there's blessings in that, but it's getting the right balance and being mindful.
Yeah, and I'm glad you picked up on that. I mean, not forgetting that a huge part of Ramadan is about gratitude as well, and it's about experiencing those feelings that we would never experience outside of Ramadan. Like you wouldn't just randomly just want to fast for no reason, right? And you get to experience what other people around the world are experiencing. I mean, like some people don't even get to break their fast at all. Some people fast for 3-4 days on end and have to drink murky water and whatever they can find on the streets. And again, that has a massive impact on your mental health. And then that's another 5 ways of mental well-being that the West has come up with. And that was a huge part of the Sunnah as well, is being grateful and showing gratitude. It's not to say that people with mental health issues are ungrateful. It's about reflection and understanding actually there's actually someone much worse off than me. How can I change my situation? And I think a lot of it comes down to control. Those people can't control their situation, whereas we can. And I don't mean we can control when we can and can't eat, but we can have some element of control on our mental health, and it almost charges you to take control for your mental health. Like, okay, how can I get help? What steps can I take to be better, to recover, to start this journey of getting over this obstacle in my life?
I'm going to pose a question to you, and I'm going to pose a question to the listeners. Are we entitled to get angry during Ramadan? The reason why I ask this is when we see the plight of the Ummah, when we see the atrocities and the injustice that is prevailing, particularly around Ramadan, we always get this every year. There's something that kicks off in the Middle East, in the Arab Peninsula, that makes us want to give in terms of our charitable donations, but it also makes us very angry. It makes us angry to the point where we will pick up something or decide to do something and it's out of kilter, it's out of character for somebody who's a moral, upstanding citizen, be it Muslim or non-Muslim. I mean, we have had people who are non-Muslims that become very, very, they become very, concerned to the point where they want to take action. We all want to take action, and we want to do things in a way that's, Islamically acceptable. Some of us take that out of context and decide to do things which are tantamount to what you call terrorism, or doing something which is not in terms of our characteristic of being a good Muslim. What do you say around that?
Well, anger it's a natural feeling that Allah has given upon all of us. Some people are more angry than others, some people aren't. Some people feel some people are more empathic than others. And empathy, again, is a huge part of our deen, and perhaps this is especially emphasized in Ramadan. So empathy, again, is about feeling, usually a lot of people use the analogy of being able to feel the other people's, what they're exactly feeling, actually being in their shoes. The Prophet ﷺ said, famous hadith about, the ummah is like one body. If one part of the body feels pain, the rest of it feels pain. And this is also a huge part of mental health. And I think empathy is something that our community lacks. Like, we don't really understand, or even want to understand rather, what depression actually feels like. We can't begin to comprehend what anxiety is like. Whereas if we did actually, if we did actually live this hadith about being like one body, then perhaps there would be a lot more understanding. And it goes back to what you were saying about the atrocities that are going on in the world. A lot of people do feel as if they're a part of one body, and perhaps those people are the ones that get more angrier than others. However, we have to understand that calamity is relative to Allah, and it is the qadr Allah, and we have to remain positive that at the end of the day, these people, they're almost guaranteed Jannah, you know.
Yes.
And I guess us giving aid and doing the charity, again, we'll be getting their adiyat. So that also has a massive impact on mental health. Giving charity is a huge part of the sunnah, and again, it goes back to the 5 ways of mental being, that, you know, one of the steps is volunteering, you know, giving to charity, etc., because it makes you feel good, and there's nothing back in return. Is true altruism. Like, you know, you give something to Palestine or Syria or Yemen or Rohingya or whatever, you're not going to get anything back in return. That is true altruism. So yeah,
what does that mean?
So altruism is, you know, doing something for the sake of doing it, not expecting anything in return.
Yes.
And again, ultimately doing it for the sake of Allah
It's
alone.
our selflessness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, that's really good. I'm glad that you covered that, because a lot of people get a big hang up around this, and anger kind of takes over. We kind of lose track of our senses, and we then tend to take the wrong path and go down a particular route that is not really the done thing. I just wanted to remind the callers, if we have any, this is the Healthy Ramadan show. We're talking about Ramadan and mental health. Please do call in to the studio, 0333 011 6786, or drop us a comment on Facebook. We look forward to hearing your feedback. We talked about calamity. This time last year, if most of you recall that were listening, we talked about trauma. We talked about what happened with Grenfell. Grenfell is very, very much still in the public domain. It's very much in the media spotlight for the right and wrong reasons. We are still grappling with what had happened a year on, and we still understand that this has affected our community, and it's had a real big ripple effect, to the point where organisations on the ground, and including Minhaj Welfare Foundation, were mobilised. They went down there. They tried to do the best they could to help in a situation which was really, really, it was completely on a scale where it was incomprehensible what had happened, and to take all that in such a short space of time, and to deal with it, and to come back with something positive in terms of action. You know, your colleagues came on the show. We talked about trauma and how to deal with it. We got a lot of counsellors on the ground. I believe Inspirited Minds did take an active role in what happened in Grenfell. Would you like to do some reflection around what you did do, and how you think there still is a need to go back in there and do a lot more work on the ground with individuals that have been, families that have been affected?
Yeah. So I think Inspiration Minds, it was either a day or two afterwards, we actually were on the ground. We were in one of the community centres where survivors and victims were going to. Because Inspiration Minds, mashallah, is made up of a lot of different backgrounds. So we got some Arabic speakers, because I believe the majority of the victims of Grenfell were from a Moroccan background, a lot of them from a South African background. So we got a lot of different types of so we could have translators basically, and we were able to provide sort of almost instant crisis support, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And yeah, we ensured that they were able to. I mean, it's trauma is so complex, and I think a lot of the people who were there, it was almost as if they were still in denial, like they didn't actually process what had happened, or it was on the opposite end of the spectrum. Some of them had lost people, some of them didn't know, where their loved ones were. And I mean, I wasn't there personally, but from what I had been told from my colleagues, it was, it was an unbelievable sight to see. And mashallah, the Muslim Rapid Response Unit to Grenfell, which was made up of various different Muslim charities, I think NZF, Islamic Relief, and Muslim Aid or something like that, I
to
think.
name but a few,
Were all a part of the response unit, and mashallah, you know, they from what it seems, they did really great work. They had sort of Muslim therapists and counsellors available, and a lot of people were working in sort of rehousing, and I think perhaps something that wasn't looked at was people were really concerned with relocating these victims and getting them physical support, making sure they had enough clothing, enough food, enough housing and stuff. And perhaps, you know, that is flight or fight mode, that is survival instincts kicking in. They have to get to a safe space. And I think perhaps somewhere down the line, mental health, the whole bereavement process, the mourning process, the trauma, that wasn't really tapped into. It wasn't really looked into. I mean, a few months ago, we did a trauma workshop around Grenfell and bereavement. And subhanAllah, it's still so very raw. Like, I mean,
those type of situations where you go in and do these types of interactions with the community, they cannot simply be one-offs, can they?
Absolutely
I mean, just doing
not.
a simple workshop around trauma and letting people contend with it all, it's not enough. You need to have people going in and helping on a constant
And we have
level.
to remember that a lot of the victims of Grenfell were perhaps of an older generation that don't even know what mental health is, don't even know what trauma is. They're probably, you know, these sorts of things don't happen all the time. So for them to have a traumatic experience and for them to have all these, you know, wide array of emotions and physical changes, and a lot of people have somatic symptoms. So somatic is like you have like an underlying mental health issue and it comes out in a physical sense. So for example, you know, if I'm suffering from depression, I have like a chronic back pain. So that would be like a somatic symptom, psychosomatic symptom. And so a lot of the victims of Grenfell probably have no idea what's going on for them mentally, because there's something that they've never had to tap into. It's a part of their mind and their physical sense that they've never had to uncover. And that's what trauma can do. It can really it can really tap into those parts of your mind that you never thought existed.
Absolutely. I think we can't not talk enough about this. I mean, it's something that's constantly brought in front of us in terms of the print media, in terms of the social media, and in terms of news coverage, and that is just like what I was saying before. It does make us quite frustrated in terms of our inability to do anything positive around it. Although what you've just mentioned is just a small example of what can be done in a productive way. And I think people need to volunteer and be selfless and try and go out and help in whatever shape or form they can, even if it's handing over a bottle of water. I mean, a lot of people were down there helping the aid agencies, and people were just going out, going to the supermarket, buying stuff, bringing it in. I mean, that was the initial reaction, wasn't it? People cannot access food, but the secondary issue was accommodation, and the community centres were opened up, and they were overwhelmed, and therefore that just kind of snowballed. And what else is it that people can do? I mean, it's like once the media spotlight is off, people tend to forget about things, do they? Don't they? And it's not true. Right. We should always be constantly aware of what our ummah is feeling. Like you say before, you know, if one part of our body is affected, the rest of it, you know, the whole ummah.
Absolutely.
We have to understand. So it's important. It's really important to be able to deal with that. Absolutely, Alhamdulillah, it's really good to hear that some positive work has been done with the Grenfell Emergency Response Team, as well as Inspirited Minds. What we'll do, we'll take a little break now, commercial break, and we'll come back. So we're hoping to get some more feedback from you, and obviously if you wish to call in and talk about anything to do with mental health, we've been talking about a number of different things, please do call in and join us. So we'll be back after the commercial break. Jazakallah khairan.
East Ham E6 free BP.
Why spend summer in your room when you can fly off to your dream destination with facilities like car hire and hotel bookings? Well, Flight Masters have got you covered. We offer holiday packages, city breaks, and flights at the most reasonable prices with the best provision of services. So why delay? Call us today on 0203 598 9938 or visit our website at www.flightmasters.com.
Do you dream of travelling to those blessed lands where the beloved of Allah was born? Does your heart yearn for Medina, the city of the beloved? If it is your time to experience a spiritual journey words cannot justify, then join us at Sam Travel and Tours and book your Hajj and Umrah packages today. We offer group and tailor-made packages for all your requirements. Based on Romford Road in London, for our last 10 days Umrah package, please call us on 0208 478 8911.
Ramadan FM 2018.
The voice of British Muslims.
MR Accountants provide a full range of accountancy and taxation services, including annual and management accounts, self-assessment, tax returns, VAT, bookkeeping and payroll services to all different types of businesses. With our in-house chartered accountants, you can be guaranteed to save money. Contact us now on 0203 432 9138.
कितनी बार कहा है कि घर को साफ रखा करो। मैं तो थक गई हूँ सफाई कर करके।
उफ, ये कॉकरोच, चूहे, कीड़े मकोड़े घर में घुस आए हैं। कहाँ जाऊँ, किसको बुलाऊं?
माँ, बहन, बीवी और बच्चे, किसी को भी इंसेक्ट्स नहीं लगते हैं ये अच्छे। So don't worry, I'll call City Pest Control. Deal with cockroaches, mice, rats, bed bugs, fleas, flies, all types of insects and rodents. 0203 633 0080 or 0770 279 8808. www.cpestc.com. City Pest Control, large enough to cope, small enough to care. All our technicians are British Pest Control Association qualified and we are regulated by the Royal Society of Public Health.
This Ramadan, visit Al Akbar's for all your meat and poultry needs. We buy only the highest quality meat and are HMC registered. We've got some amazing offers on all our products this Ramadan and we provide free local delivery for all our customers. We also cater for restaurants and large events, so no matter how big or small your order is, Al Akbar's is the name to remember. Visit us now at 51 to 53 Upton Lane, Forest Gate, E7 9PA or call us at 0208 472 5742. Al Akbar's, the name to remember.
Yo bro, Cuzzy's getting married and I need to get hold of a car.
Yar, I know some boys who know SPM car hire. They got the best cars in town. Rolls Royces, Ranges, Maseratis, Aston Martins. Cause you name it, they got it with the best prices in town.
Sorted. Looks like I'm going to this wedding in a Range then.
They'll drop off the car and pick you up once you're done. Just give them a ring on 01798 397 916 or visit them online spmhire.com or find them on Instagram.
Looking for meat and groceries? Look no further than Waris Food Store in Walthamstow. Visit the store to view our special Ramadan offers. 420 Hull Street, Walthamstow, E17 9AA. Or for free delivery, call us on 0208 521 0000. We have fresh deliveries of poultry and vegetables every day. Waris Food Store in Walthamstow.
Reliance Solicitors fight to protect your legal rights. Our firm offers a wide range of services including immigration, family law, commercial law, civil litigation, personal injury, landlord and tenant disputes and employment law. Visit us at 602A High Road, 7 Kings, Ilford, IG3 8BU or call 0207 183 5439. Reliance Solicitors, where every client matters.
Britain Solicitors.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are back on air for the Healthy Ramadan show. Today we're talking about Ramadan and mental health with our guest Minha Begum from Inspirited Minds, a Muslim mental health charity. So we were talking about a number of different issues and we would want to now carry on our discussion around what are the common expectations of Ramadan when it comes to how we're feeling and the emotional state that we tend to go through?
So often people think Ramadan is this huge refresh button, which it is, of course, but I think a lot of people look for a cure, quote unquote cure, for their mental health problems and a lot of other things actually. And it's not to say that Allah wouldn't provide a cure in Ramadan, but that's not Ramadan. That's not what Ramadan is about. Now, I know we spoke earlier how Ramadan is about, attaining taqwa, being aware of Allah, being content with His qadr, and various other things. But I mean, I think personally for me, Ramadan was often about getting rid of all the bad stuff inside me and trying to refuel myself with goodness, which in one sense it is, but I think there is this huge sort of misunderstanding that Ramadan is the cure for mental health problems, and it's the cure for mental illnesses. Just like Hajj and Umrah, a lot of people think that if they go to Hajj or they go to Umrah, that Allah will cure them of their mental health problems, and a lot of people go there with unrealistic expectations, I believe. And it's, of course, we're not doubting Allah's ability to do anything. However, we are almost not working hard enough, if that makes sense. Like, there's so much more beauty within Ramadan than just searching for a cure for our mental health problems. And if we were to do our ibadah effectively, now I didn't say properly because there is no right or wrong way to do ibadah in a sense, but if we do our ibadah effectively for ourselves and work on that connection with Allah and also acknowledging the problems that we have, then we're more likely to get something better out of Ramadan. Because once Ramadan is over, we often just go back to ourselves, our old selves, which is why Ramadan is also a huge opportunity to obviously implement good habits and etc. But I know personally for me, I'll be on this huge spiritual high throughout Ramadan. I'll feel great. I won't have a lot of negative thoughts. I really feel like, and the day after Eid, that's it. It's just like I'm back to my depressed self. I'm still having these negative thoughts. Why didn't Ramadan work? It must have been something that I did wrong. Maybe Allah hasn't forgiven me and all these sorts of things. And I think we go into Ramadan expecting all of these things to vanish, and maybe they do temporarily, because again, it's about the placebo effect, I think, which is, where you have a belief that something's going to work, so it does. But again, that's limited to just Ramadan. I think we need to sort of widen that expectation to Allah and the rest of the year, and not just Ramadan, because that's not what Ramadan is there for. It's to improve ourselves, it's not to fix us, if that makes sense.
Do you think our over-reliance on others telling us what to do is a good thing? Because we've got now so many things that we can tap into. I mean, I'm just getting WhatsApp messages flashed up on my phone. I'll be the first to be accused of doing it myself. You know what I mean? I'll put myself first. But what I'm saying is we tend to get a lot of information bombarding us about it's Ramadan. We need to do this. We need to recite this. It's the last 10 days. Increase your ibadah by doing this, doing that. That isn't necessarily the right thing for everybody. And when you see somebody else running at a speed of lightning, and you're like plodding along in like a turtle's pace. And you're thinking, oh, I've not even recited a quarter of the Quran yet. And it makes you feel like I'm not good enough, or is Allah not going to accept it from me? What do you say to that?
Well, I think it's so true, subhanAllah, especially for people with specific mental health problems. Like, for example, people who have psychosis, and obviously people with psychosis who have to take medication, obviously they would be exempt from fasting. But for example, I worked with one specific person who had psychosis, and they would often say to me, look, I can't read Quran because there's all sorts of things going on inside my head, does that mean I'm any less than this person? And it's just like, hang on a second. Allah looks at you. He doesn't look at you next to this person. Because remember, the only difference in front of Allah is God consciousness. It's only piety, it's taqwa, it's His, tawakkul, how much you believe in Allah. It's not about practices. It's not about how much you can do of this. And I think with Ramadan, like I said, it's it's so much about fasting when essentially it's not. You know, it's about making that connection with Allah. And a lot of people will say, oh, you have to do the Taraweeh, and if you don't do Taraweeh, what's the point in Ramadan, and you have to finish like the whole Quran in 1 month and all sorts of stuff. And it's like, well, if someone was already doing that and they still had mental health problems, what would you say to that person? You know, would you say to, oh, you need to just do it some more? It doesn't make sense. That's not what Ramadan and the connection to Allah is about. It may be for some people, but it doesn't mean that it's the same for, you know, for a lot of others. A lot of people with anxiety, they don't want to go to a jam-packed mosque where they feel claustrophobic and to pray their Taraweeh. That's fine. You know, you can't expect someone to put themselves in a place of discomfort, because that's not what pleases Allah. You know, Islam was not supposed to be a hard religion, and I think that's what us Muslims often try to do, because we think if something's harder, there's more reward in it. There's a difference. If you strive hard for Allah, of course, but if you put yourself in a place of discomfort, mentally especially, it's not going to get you anywhere. And you know, another thing I'd like to talk about is, a lot of people during Ramadan, we talk about Iman, we talk about the mercy of Allah, we talk about forgiveness, we talk about seeking refuge in Allah. All of these concepts are so closely related to mental health, but nobody even thinks about mental health and how it can... It's like inherently it's there, but nobody wants to say, yeah, we're talking about mental health actually, because, you know, we all know the taboos around mental health.
Okay. Well, one of the last things I wanted to ask you was around those of us that are unable to fast during Ramadan. What can you say around that? Because of those very reasons that we just mentioned. If our mental capacity is not intact and we can't remember things and we're a bit forgetful and our mental state isn't sufficient enough for us to warrant to carry out fasting, what do you say to that?
You know, it's such a coincidence actually. We had a guest author publish an article last week, on Tuesday actually, and it's actually titled Out Worshipped. And you know, this particular author was a mother who has been pregnant for about 2 consecutive years, I think, and then is now breastfeeding. So she hasn't been able to fast for about 3 or 4 years, I think. And she was saying how these years that she hasn't been able to fast, she felt extremely left out, and she felt that she couldn't taste the sweetness of Ramadan like everyone else did, just because she wasn't fasting.